Until there's a mic change, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Talk a little bit about his career and the company he works for. Ahmad Assaf works for Beamery. He's the head of engineering and innovation at the company, also in the UK. And he also used to be the director of intelligence and data at the company. Previously, he worked with SAP and a number of well-known organizations as well. So Ahmad Assaf will be with us in a few moments. And I'm left here on stage once again.
Hey guys, sorry, I'm the one sitting between you and the coffee break, so I try to be a bit fast. Just to echo Zaid, huge thanks to the guys, the organizers. Special shout out to Manaf and Tambi, who, yeah, amazing guys. Manaf just sent me like, man, do you want to talk in a conference in Jordan? I was like, yeah, like immediately. I didn't even think about it. So, my name is Ahmad Assaf. This is my Twitter handle if you want to reach out to me. I work at Beamery. Maybe a bit of context. So I'm one of the founding team basically when I joined the guys. I was doing my PhD in machine learning and like living the life in south of France, and then got introduced to those guys and like, do you want to do something cool? And you know, like the promise of going from a big company like SAP to a startup was like a bit scary. And I took a leap of faith and just decided to go, and it's been almost, let's say, 4 years now, and it's been great. It's been a great experience, and if anyone wants to understand how is it to jump from the corporate to startup, just hit me up, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about what we do. So Beamery, I'm trying to make it sound cool. It's hard to make a software as a service startup that does HR tech cool, but I'm going to try my best. So what we have is, we try to disrupt how people recruit talent. So for a while now, people used to approach recruitment in a reactive way. So a company will have a vacancy, they will advertise for it, and people will apply. That's it. And what we say is people have to be always in the look for talents, so recruitment have to be done in a proactive way. So it means that you have to be always looking for people, whether you want to recruit for a vacancy now or in the future. So all the time you have to be looking for information about people, nurture this kind of relationship. So what we say is treat your candidates like your customers. So in the core, we have a CRM, where the C stands for candidate, but also we have ways to reach out to those people, so sending email campaigns, SMS campaigns, whatever. We have a compliance thing. So we basically like have these four main pillars in our application. To give you a bit of context about what Beamery is, because I don't think any one of you heard about it, so we started in 2015. We raised around 40 million in both Series A and Series B. We have now 3 offices, our headquarters in London, and we have in San Francisco and Austin, Texas. We have partnership with one of the big names in the industry. So all of these are like SAP, SuccessFactors, Workday, big companies. Oops, can I go back? Yeah. We have also very huge names in our client list. For legal reasons, I will not be able to tell you the first line, but I think you guys can guess what is the #1 social network or #1 e-commerce company in the world. But we have huge names in our clients, and this is a huge validation for what we do and that we are actually into something. So Beamer started 2015. We were 6 people, 3 engineers, including myself, and 3 commercial roles. And basically, we are trying to reach what we call the product market fit. So you guys have been hearing a lot about an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. So product market fit is a bit different. So an MVP is actually something that we did before Beamery. So we were called C Jobs, and we were working on MVP for, let's say, a year before we started actually the rebranding into Beamery. And the main difference is an MVP, you try to validate your idea, okay? So you need to see if you will have customers for it. A PMF is basically, okay, there's something, we are into something, and I want to make sure that I would have all the features that is at least needed and covered by all the competitors in the market. So in 2015, we set our goal to actually do this kind of product market fit, and we had no customers. 2016, we managed to reach Beamery 1, so we version our releases by Beamery 1, 2, etc. So now we are, I think, trying to release Beamery 6 at the moment. So in 2016, we were 11 people, 6 engineers. So we were just like basically hiring more towards engineering because that was basically our main focus. Abakar, our CEO, he was the guy who was doing sales, our CPO who was doing marketing. So, you know, like people wearing so many different hats. At that time, we were basically trying to adopt new technologies. We moved from PHP and MySQL to Node.js and Mongo because it was cool at the time. And we actually started having some customers. They were like small to medium business companies, but we actually had paying customers, which was not bad. We raised our Series A in 2017. We were around 20 people, and we actually had our first enterprise customer, which was VMware at that time. We started to see early scaling problems because you don't think of everything in the beginning. You really want to move fast. You want to validate your ideas. 2018, so last year we managed to raise our Series B. That was, let's say, that chunky bit. At the moment, we are 130 people, so you can see the scaling that we had from 20 people to 130. From 11 engineers, we are now 50. We are planning to be 100 by the end of the year, which means that we are hiring. So if anyone is interested, hit me up. We are hiring for various roles. And I'm going to talk about how we structured the teams, basically. And what's next, hopefully unicorn. Planning to raise Series C next year, but let's see what's going to happen. My talk is about how my personal experience and my experience in Beamery and how to actually have a startup from literally a garage. It's like the typical startup story up to, let's say, a global company, 3 offices around the world, and millions in our annual recurring revenue. So people talked about OKR yesterday, and I'm not sure if you guys know what an OKR is. It's an objective and key results. It's something that was developed by Google. However, for us, we had to go with a different approach. So my talk is about micro everything. So how we actually split everything, starting from the company's vision up to the teams to actually manage to scale. So what we have is what we call NOMs with a double M, where the N stands for a North Star. So the company starts with a very broad, let's say, company vision that is years down the line. So our North Star is Beamery becomes the software for talent recruitment. So it's the, let's say it's the SAP or the Salesforce of recruitment. Then we would have objectives, and these objectives can be a yearly objective. So for example, for this year, we want to increase our ARR by, for example, 10 million. Then you would split those objectives into milestones, which roughly map into quarters. So you can say in my first quarter, I want to increase my ARR by, for example, 2.5. So you can split these kind of objectives into quarterly milestones. And then absolutely at some point you need to have measures. Because it's so easy to have goals in your mind, but you have no way of understanding if you actually hit those targets. And it's not to say a binary, yes, I hit my target or not. You need to have some kind of a measure if you almost hit it so that you can understand and improve in the future. And in the end, you work in sprints. Everyone in the company, sales, marketing, customer success, engineering, all of us, we work in sprints. So I assume you guys are familiar a bit with the concept of agile and sprints. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. But basically, we run into 2-week sprints. So every 2 weeks, we actually validate and go back and retrospectively see if we hit our measures, our milestones, our objectives. And the North Star basically stays the same. So I think Dina shared a slide about the Facebook move fast and break things, but we actually move fast and ignore things. And that was the way how we managed to actually scale that fast. So at some point, even I think Michael yesterday was talking about, the poker thing of trying to validate the deals that you guys have. So at some point, we had a customer and we would ship a feature that we know will break for that customer. We say, I don't care about that customer because I'm going to care about the next guy who might, for example, be paying you millions for an annual license. So this is basically was our model. We ignored lots of things. But at some point, we would say, okay, we need to stop and go back and retrospectively, attack this kind of tech debt. And you guys might have a hint why I have the triple equal here, because we love JavaScript and we use JavaScript and Node.js everywhere. So strict equal that ignoring things is tech debt. Lots of JavaScript fans, I like that. So basically, my talk would talk about 4 main pillars. So how we actually split the organization into micro teams. I'm going to talk about, how we split teams into, say, basically silos and tribes. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. How we actually have microservices, so in the back end. I'm not going to talk a lot about that because, there was talks about market today about microservices and, domain-driven design, etc. So I'm going to touch briefly on that. I'm going to talk about micro apps in the front end, which is, I think, is something that is a bit trending at the moment. So that would be an interesting thing. I'm going to talk about as well micro ops. So I know that Zaid was talking about DevOps is actually a mindset, or let's say a culture, and I agree with him. However, you would need this kind of specialty in the organization when you would have people who care about developers, who want to make their lives easier, who care about the infrastructure and take care of it. So I will put the DevOps here, and it's all about the people who would help you ship faster, ship in smaller chunks, so take care of your CI/CD pipeline, etc. So the main thing is that legacy hurts. So again, they talk about legacy code, and it's something that really basically hinders you from moving fast. So developers, including myself, we like to think of ourselves as like intelligent, forward-thinking looking people. We always want to tackle the like latest challenges, and we always want to be motivated. And if you work on legacy code, like you're sad and you're really like not the mood. So it really hurts, and it actually hurts the business in the long run, because at some point we like trying to hire developers for our front end and like advertising, okay, we need AngularJS developers. No one was applying. Like you hit up people, cold emails like, guys, I want an AngularJS developer. Like, no, sorry, we only work in React. So it really hits the people. When I say about AngularJS, guys, I talk about like I think we were on 1.14, so like a really old version. And people are like either Angular 5 or React, or I'm not interested. So actually hiring people and scaling our team with a legacy code base was bad for us. So we had to think, well, how can I now change my tech stack so that not only I can attract talent, but the people who I have in my company will actually retain and stay and be happy and feel that they are challenged. So micro apps, how we actually managed to break our front-end monolith. And well, there's a code that legacy is actually constant in JavaScript. Like, the space of JavaScript moves so fast. Like, I think Chris was talking to you about the ecosystem of JavaScript, and it's really hard to stay up to date. I subscribe to tons of RSS and Twitter feeds, and every day there's a new package, every day there's a new library, every day there's a new way of doing something. So it's hard to stay up to date, but we are trying so hard. So the main idea is, when you want to split basically the monolith or the front-end application, it's because you want to understand who owns what. So the advantage is, with the monolith, there's no clear line who owns what. And it's so easy, you know, like with the front end and CS classes that can become messy, and nested functions, that there's no clear distinction between your services and between your components, directives, whatever you want to call it in your front end. And it's also difficult because you are not learning, you're not basically advancing with the technology. And it was so damn hard to actually scale Angular 1. So loading time was becoming just like increasingly longer. Building as well the application, even when like using Webpack or Parcel or whatever build language used for your front end, it was just difficult and brittle. This is a screenshot of our application. I just put my profile up there. I think it's an old screenshot, but basically to tell you what was going to happen with our monolith is this was Angular. The grid was Angular. The navigation bar was Angular. This was Angular. So it was so hard to break this. So what we said is, what we're going to do is we're going to break this into a set of different applications that would communicate with each other. So this guy is now React. This guy is React. This guy now is Vue.js, and we kept the navigation bars Angular. What we did now here is we split this. One, we managed to hire lots of people who love doing React. People who were in-house and start to learn React were also happy. And what we managed to do is we managed to reuse a library called Single SPA, where SPA stands for single page applications. It's open source. You guys can take a look. And if you're interested about how we actually did this, if you go to Beamery blog, I think it's on Medium called Hacking Talent, you would have lots of basically literature about how we actually did this. It's really interesting. And if you are a front-end application, I would advise you to read about how we actually managed to do front-end applications as like a micro front-end apps. So we have basically a centralized Flux store where you subscribe and listen to events, because basically the application needs to understand the global state. So the profile needs to understand what did you click on the grid and show the correct profile in there. And we did all of that with a nice, basically, message passing. We also reuse browser URL so that we can basically maintain some kind of state. So read about the blog if you're interested, or just ask me in the coffee break. Happy to tell you more about it. So to touch about how we broke basically the monolith in the backend, we are not fully there. We are still primarily in a monolith application, but this is Beamery architecture from a very high level. So what we have is we have Apache Kafka as our main message broker. So we send messages to Apache Kafka. People subscribe to that. Life is good. We're still using RabbitMQ in various instances, but what we did is we split our APIs in various different chunks. And what we used to see is all of our app was in one main API. And at some point, you would onboard a new customer who's sending a huge email campaign for millions of emails. What's going to happen is everything goes down because we just can't cope up with just the mail API that they were hitting. So splitting the APIs, you are now able to scale one API if that API specifically is getting certain demand, and all the others will be running normally. So to give you an idea, fully Dockerized, we run over Google Cloud. Everything is orchestrated by Kubernetes. It's really state-of-the-art architecture. At the moment, we use MongoDB as our main store, which is very weird for a CRM, which is highly related to use Mongo. But maybe one of the things that that I would like to tell you here is technology will never be a barrier. Like, really, you think about the company first, you think about the success of the company first, and then you can adopt technologies. So for example, now we have views on MongoDB. So you can actually link different collections because MongoDB does not talk in tables, but collections using views. And what we did is also we have a live replication from MongoDB into Elasticsearch, which means that now we can do our search, we can do our aggregations on top of Elasticsearch. And now Elasticsearch Xpand is open source, and you can have graph database on top of Elastic. So technology is evolving fast, and don't think that, oh my God, my data is relational, I have to move. At some point, moving from MongoDB to a relational database was just like a huge investment that we can't just take. So it's like, we want to make sure that MongoDB will work for our use case. So we develop plugins that does this live replication. We think of Elasticsearch, how we're going to make things work. And at some point, we have to move to Postgres, or we have to move to CockroachDB, or whatever relational database we're going to use. But this managed to make us where we are now, like 4 years, and this architecture is actually sustainable because we managed to think about scaling from a bit early on. I'm going to touch about an interesting problem here about micro-ops and how we managed to scale DevOps. So this is the story of my life, literally. So people in my company used to do things and all the time do it manually. At some point, the geek in myself will get annoyed. I will spend weeks or days or whatever writing a script to automate it. I win, and they keep doing this manually. So this is basically the culture that, with the DevOps mindset, basically that Zid was talking about, is you need to make sure that at some point, repetitive things has to be optimized. You need to write something. You need to have tooling for something that would help you and automate your life and automate the life of other developers as well that you have in your company. So in the beginning, we have around 25 backend specific repos and 15 for the front end. Now, there is a huge discussion about monorepo versus meta repo. I'm not going to go into that because it gets personal, so I'm going to skip this. But I mean, again, no right and wrong. You can go monorepo, you can go meta repo. I mean, what we did is we wanted to work with what we have. Again, you want to scale. You can't afford time to stop and say, I'm going to go back and rework everything because I did a mistake. You need to make sure that you can make tooling that will help you scale. Again, our code base is entirely in Node.js. So now, having all your backend in one language would basically have people start sharing code across. So we'll have a library that will be shared across different things. So it's not really a clean, basically, microservices, because at some point you would have a demo and a plugin library that you use, you would just like, oh God, like for the demo, I'm going to share it in here. And then you would forget that you actually did a hack and it will stay in your code base, and then things will become interconnected. Okay, so when we talk about this plugin libraries become dependent, and they are also deployable. So what happened here is, and Zid, I think will like me for this, we love tests, and wherever you subscribe to BDD or TDD, we are a test-first company because we can't afford to go live with something that is be buggy or our customers will not like it. So at the moment, I think our SLAs, which are the service level agreements, is 99.99 availability. And that means that we can only afford to be down for less than an hour a year. So less than 5 minutes in a month. And for a startup, this is like scary, that you're promising your customers who are paying you millions that you'll be available for 99.99% of the time. So you need to make sure that you have confidence in the test, people have confidence in their features, and people own it. From the moment that they develop to the moment that they push it, they can understand that I'm going to push it, I'm going to see the test, everything is green. If not, then I'm going to talk about people, see what's going to happen. But that was becoming like really difficult. And it slowed us a lot. Why? Because of this dependency. You change something somewhere, and then everything blows up. And you have no idea why, because we have this kind of interlinked dependencies. So engineers become frustrated. I don't like this. I can't work like this anymore. I'm spending weeks waiting for my PR that has been merged to be pushed because master is blocked by some other feature that broke the tests. And this is a very common thing to do. So what we did is, we created a tool that's called Story, and Story will be open sourced, I think in the next month or so. So we're just like polishing up, making sure it has a README, and it sits on top of Meta, which is a tool that we already open sourced. So if you guys just Google Beamery HQ on GitHub, you will find all of the open source tools that we are pushing to the community back. And what it does, basically, it understands and analyzes the package.json file, because again, we are Node.js, and can automatically calculate what we call the blast radius. So it tells you if you change this repo, it will affect all of these other repos. It will automatically run the unit test in all of those repos. It will understand what kind of test for integration that it needs to run. It will do all of that for you automatically. So now people can go on the terminal and write story, create, and save their story, and then story blast radius, story run tests, and they can do everything, and everything is being run for them automatically. Is this the only way? Again, there's no right and wrong, and literally, maybe disclaimer, anything that I say in this presentation is not a blueprint for how you scale. It's basically our story and how we manage to scale with what we have. So again, we might have made early decisions that would allow us to not have these problems. But again, like as you scale, I think maybe the outcome of this is make sure that you embrace your failures, make sure that you can have tooling that will help you scale, and not just like at some point block and like, oh my God, I have to go back and fix everything. You can move and you can push the limits of basically everything up to a certain point when you can actually afford to go back and refactor. The main basically meat of my presentation would be basically about micro teams and how we actually managed to scale management in Beamery. And this was one of the hardest things that I personally found. I mean, previously in SAP, I was only managed by good managers. I never managed a team. And then I moved to a company, and then at some point, I'm managing now 50 engineers, and we will be 100 by end of this year. And it's really hard that everything changes from being an engineer to being an engineering manager, or basically say a manager of managers as well. So what we found is the people that you hire in the beginning of your, let's say, early days are not necessarily the same people that will stay with you till the end. And this is a very important distinction that I want to tell you guys, because you would have people, for example, who are hackers in the beginning, who can hack things, who might be juniorish, who would also willing to take the risk with you. But as you scale, you want a bit more seasoned people who can, for example, help you scale, etc. And then what hurt us is those people who were with us in the beginning, they expect to be promoted and to scale with the company, which is true. Like some of them they do, but it's not basically like yes, you have been with us in the beginning, and then you will be, for example, our lead architect in 2 years. So having this culture of how we can make sure that we give people the roadmap to grow, and we make sure that they understand that we are here to help them grow to wherever they want as fast as possible. And culture is one of the most important things that I think everyone talks about. Culture in the startup world is really important, because when you hire people, people will need to believe in your mission, need to believe in your company, because we're not paying them lots of money. Basically, someone will come and we pay way below the market rate, and we give them, okay, well guys, we're going to give you these equity options, which are basically monopoly money, but believe in us. So having this culture and the right mindset and the right people with the right, basically, hunger for challenge is important to hire and to build your engineering team. So what we started with is independent cross-functional teams. So these are the names of the teams that we have now. So Iceberg, Rocket, Engage. We have also Enigma and a bunch, I think it's called Ouroboros. We have some weird names for those teams, but the main idea was you want to create independent cross-functional teams that are capable of doing everything without the need of anyone else. So they can start their code, they can push their code, they can monitor it, and they can report on it. So teams will have backend, frontend, if needed, DevOps, designer, a product owner / product manager. I mean, I know some people will have distinction between these two roles, but for us, they were a hybrid. Sorry, they were even a Scrum Master at some point. So again, people wearing different hats. And what we managed to do is we managed to create a contract document. So if a backend wants to work with a frontend or vice versa, they need to create a backend frontend contract. And if teams need to work across each other, they need to create a teams contract. And basically it's a Gherkin syntax. I'm not sure if you guys know Gherkin. It's a way to actually define basically test cases. So it will be like this. Well, as a front-end engineer, I expect if I hit this API to get with this payload to get back this kind of data, and then this actually allowed us to scale because now you are giving a standard way for people to communicate. And standardization was actually important for us. Lots of people talk about process, and process might be one of the most overhyped words in like the tech scene, but it's actually really important to have processes, to have standardization in communication, in your code base, in your code quality, and everything. Then what we found out is the cross-functional model is good, but it does not really scale well. So we adopted the tribes model, and I think Michael talked a little bit about it yesterday. So it's the guys from Spotify, they created this kind of tribe concept. So what we did is we created this tribe concept, but in a bit in a different way. So what we have now is tribes will be focused around product areas. So I talked about having a CRM, so you might have a CRM tribe. We might have a core engineering tribe. So these are people who are taking care of our logging, of our infrastructure. And you can think of a tribe, for example, in the future, like a mobile tribe, a marketplace tribe. So you are clustering people around functional areas. And the main processes in this model is actually a mission and a launchpad. And I will explain all of these here. So we are putting people in a mission, and they need to deliver on this mission after the basically specific set of processes happen. And let's say the mission process basically is to create a value added to the product. It needs to have a specific period of time. It needs to have a specific number of engineers on time. And the personas that we have here, I'm just going to mention quickly: an engineering manager, a product manager, a mission lead, a solutions architect, a designer, and a launchpad lead. So an engineering manager is basically, let's say, the guy who would oversee the engineering management of things. He will not be in the mission itself. Product manager, you guys know about it. A mission lead is basically a tech lead, and a solution architect who might be overseeing more than one mission, and a designer and a launchpad lead. I'm going to talk about this now. So an example mission would be, due to market research that we found, or the product people of course do that, they found out that 25 of our users want to have an integration with Workable. Of course, it's more complicated than that. We need to make sure that it has also sales data. People already evaluate with customers, maybe you have letters of intent or whatever. But basically, they will say the main goal of this mission is to integrate with Workable, and Workable is an external provider that we now have. And basically, people want to be able to sync their contacts across these two systems. Very high level. What's the target? We want to increase our customers by 5% after 3 months. The resources, one backend, one frontend, one mission lead. And I missed to mention that also you need to specify the time. You can say, well, this might take, for example, a month, 2 months of work, etc. I'm just going to tell you a bit sneak peek about how we actually define our product value in Beamery. So when I told you a bit more complex than that, so we actually have what we call the RICE indicator, and RICE is basically reach times impact times confidence over the effort, and this will bring you the value. And this is how we prioritize our product roadmap. So we have a huge product roadmap. You have input from your product team, you have input from your customers, you have input from your potential new customers, and then you want to make sure that whenever you sit down and you define your norms that you talked about first, that you take value into account. The mission process starts by the product team having these ideas. So it can be as simple as the product guys going back to the backlog. Okay, I'm going to pick the most, let's say the highest item with the highest value, and I'm going to work on that. So here what we have is we keep track of two things: accountable and informed. We actually have a bit more extended model. I'm not sure if you guys know about RASCI. So RASCI, it's like a framework that defines who's responsible, who's accountable, who's informed, and who's consulted, and who's supportive. But just to give you a high-level idea, you just mentioned basically on the performance who's accountable and who's informed. After that, you need to prepare for this mission. So before you actually go to your team and tell them, guys, I'm going to work on this, things has to happen. The PM has to introduce this mission, has to do a bit of research. And he has to go to the engineering manager, who is, let's say, the tech savvy in that tribe, to understand, well, is this feasible to do? Because very often I get approached by guys, listen, man, I'm going to do this kind of automatic enrichment of candidates based on their geolocation. And dude, this is not feasible. We can't do that. So they need to validate this kind of technical thing with the engineering manager. Then you will do the prioritization, and you will assign a mission lead. So at the moment, this assignment would be basically the PM, who is, let's say, manager of that tribe, with the engineering manager of that tribe. They will say, okay, well, I think X would be a good guy to lead this mission. And this would be a nice way as well for you to manage people's career paths. Because, for example, if you see a guy who has potential to becoming, let's say, a tech lead or a team lead, at some point you'll say, okay, let's try him on this mission. Let's put him a mission lead and see how he will do in it. You define your scope, you do your user research, you do all this kind of UX stuff, and then you would have your estimate. So at the end of this step, you would have this kind of clear value proposition of your mission. Then, basically, you would go to launch your mission. So literally, PMs will go to the tribe, and they will pitch their idea. To say, guys, listen, I sat down with Mark, and we discovered that we can do this in a month, and it's X and Y and Z. Who's interested? And people will vote. I'm going to work on this. No, I don't like this. Now, it's not complete democracy, because at some point you would know that Paul would be the best guy to work on this, and this guy is not really suitable. So people will have a say in it, but in the end, it's between the engineering manager and the product manager to actually decide who might work on it. But people would have basically this kind of false sense of democracy. But it's actually really important, because people feel important when they have a say in what they want to work on or not. You will assign your team, and then basically, again, do more discovery sessions, dig into more details, again, with your team and mission lead, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like you guys, again, like we're publishing a blog post about this process soon, so it will be more details. I'm just conscious of time. And then you will go actually and just execute. So it's all team now here. You would go and you will say spend 1 month, 2 months doing your test, doing your code, and making sure things are good, things are green, and then you will deliver it. Now, here is where things become interesting. Landing. You finish your mission, I'm going to land it now. So we talked about 2 things in the tribe model. We talked about the missions and the launchpad. So what's going to happen here, at the end of your mission, you want to now, the team will be moved to launchpad. The launchpad, think of it as a temporary place where engineers would have a cool down period. So they work in this mission, they will go now and be on this launchpad. And then basically you would now have, you need people to support your feature that you pushed. It's live now, but what if you have bugs? So you need to prepare the support team so that they can actually have enough training to be able to be on call, to be able to support this if anything happens. Validate the release checklist, do your retrospective, clean up tasks, push the document to Confluence, make sure that the engineering wiki is updated, and do all this kind of stuff. Now, this emergency feature is, like engineers, we are really bad at estimating things regardless of what's going to happen. So very often people will actually hit this kind of extension phase, but you need to have strict rules. You need to say, well, I'm going to give you maximum 25% of your original ask time, because you need to make sure that people are held accountable, and it's not just like, well, I missed my target. Okay, well, take whatever you want until you hit it. So there has to be certain, basically, accountability for this. Now, I talked about people moving to the Launchpad, and the Launchpad was actually a way for us to motivate engineers. In most of my one-on-ones with the engineers, everyone used to tell me, like, Ahmad, the most important thing for me is learning. I don't feel that I'm learning enough. I want to make sure that, I know about this kind of technology. So being on the Launchpad actually allows people to learn, allows people to explore new technologies, allows people to prepare for new missions. Most important, people in the Launchpad are actually the ones who tackle our tech debt. Because you can't afford to have a team that all the time is just doing tech debt. It's just unfair for them. So since you have a rotation of people on missions and people on Launchpad, then people on Launchpad, in a different intervals start, tackling this legacy code that you have, fixing bugs. People also take vacations in that. They do, for example, interviews, all the admin tasks while they are on the Launchpad. So what you have here is you have this kind of nice rotation of responsibilities between people who are on missions and people who are on Launchpad. And also people on the Launchpad arrange guild events. And what are guilds? So we have another basically level of arranging people. So this is based on speciality. So we have tribes that maps to product areas, but also we have a grouping of people based on their specialization. So we have backend, front-end, and DevOps tribe. And basically those guys, they meet once every 2 weeks, and they are from all the teams across, and they share knowledge. They do lunch and learns. They order pizzas in the office, and they say, okay, guys, we're exploring this. We did this and this technology. And people can go to any tribe meeting across. So a front-end guy can go and attend the back-end tribe. It's all about knowledge sharing. And this is really important because people feel that they are part of let's say, greater knowledge, that is to say, a back-end, and they can actually share stuff. It's really important to have this kind of extracurricular activities like lunch and learns. So why we do this, I talked about the motivation, so they are not stuck, you spread knowledge, and then you have people who are always focusing on code quality. It's really hard that you're growing your code base and maintaining the same code quality, so those guys would be basically the brakes on this. And then it's also easier to evaluate people, so you'd have a mission, did they hit their target, did they not? So it's also easier to evaluate people and manage their career paths, basically. So I talked about micro everything, and then people might be scared about micromanaging. No one loves micromanaging, it's horrible. But one thing that is important, especially for engineering managers, is you want to understand how your team is doing without all the time going and asking what they're doing. It's really bad. So what you need to make sure that you have is automatic reporting on what people do. So we use GitHub. Our code is on top of GitHub, and basically you can plug these tools on top of GitLab or wherever basically, like code hosting service that you use, and you can have this kind of insights about people. So for example, this is my profile. I don't code a lot, but basically what you discover here is 11% of what I do is new work, but I do lots of churning work, and churn is basically any code that I push that I refactor within a 3 weeks window. So this means that I do lots of hacks for demos that I go back and fix afterwards. And I do lots of refactoring because very often I just go back and I remember I did things 2 years ago that I'm not proud of. And it can tell you that Ahmad at the moment is exploring. So you can see how I sit between, I think I can't read from here. I think like stuck or exploring. So you can go, for example, for myself, every day I go up and I see, okay, who is most probably stuck? And I will go and see, for example, do they need help? Shall I go and ask them? Are they blocked by some other team? So you actually manage to scale managing by automating how you monitor your engineers. Another thing that here, like you have also, let's say, this kind of daily updates, and you can have, let's say, a high-level overview on your teams. Again, like we have lots of reports. I even managed to do a Chrome extension that sits on top of your GitHub that can build these things for you. So I think I'm going to open source this soon, but I'm just going to clean up the code because I'm not really proud of it. But as you can see here, I just go to the milestones tab on GitHub, and I can understand how many people closed bugs, what the types there were, did we, for example, miss some of our SLAs? I can explore this kind of thing, and all of this happens on top of GitHub. So you can scale managing engineers as well in a transparent way that does not seem like micromanaging. Yeah, I think best of wisdom in the end. So I talked about culture, and I think culture is really something that no one should underestimate. It's really the most important thing that you need to have while you are scaling. And you need to make sure that whenever you hire people that are a cultural fit. So our hiring process starts with basically screening interview. Is he technically good? Then he would go down to a cultural fit interview because there's no use for you to deeply evaluate this guy if he's not a cultural fit for your company. And you need to make sure that you actually nail down the problem statement. You need to make sure that you have your PMF that we talked about in the beginning so that you can avoid the premature scaling. So you need to make sure that there's a good market need for your idea before you actually go on and design your organization around it. And then maybe the last thing is, at least I'm not aware of any successful microservice story that didn't start with the monolith. So don't, like say, I want to do microservice because they are cool. Make sure that, you scale as you need, and then you have your validation across. And I think I'm on time. So thank you, guys. Again, if you want to hit me up, that's me.
Awesome job, Ahmed. Really, very impressive stuff, by the way. And the layered thinking of how you're managing the organization as a whole is something that I really haven't seen in that detail before. So congrats on that. We do have a coffee break coming up, but I'd like to open the floor for questions. If anybody is really thirsty for coffee, they can go outside. But I think I'd love Ahmed to take a few questions from here.
Absolutely,
so we have one question. I'll turn the mic on. Can you help him, please? But Ahmed, sounds like even for a recruitment business, it's also very tough to recruit sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, hiring was literally one of our most, let's say, difficult tasks. We've been trying to hire engineers for let's say months now, and it's difficult because of two things. One, we went for niche technologies like Node.js, etc. So everyone in London who wants to work in Node.js, they want a contract and gets much more money than what they can get paid for. But on the other hand, it's also the cultural fit that you like. You need to make sure that whoever you hire would actually fit all these kind of criteria. Yep. So it's not easy, and you need to make sure that people understand why they are joining your company and make sure that they understand the vision, the North Stars, and the culture before you hire them. It's really hard. It's not easy. Yeah.
And is it frequent? Do you see a lot of companies changing their technology to fit the market rather than the other way around?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Do you see it very often that companies actually change the technologies that they use to fit the market?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What we see here probably is the other way around. We want people to actually learn the technologies and then join the company.
I mean, for example, lots of companies, why they adopt microservices, because basically anything that can expose a service and API would be a valid choice for you. So you can say, well, Scala is cool now, so let's hire people who can do Scala APIs. So it is common. I don't think it's the standard practice. Yeah. But for us, it was a way to attract people, especially for front-end technologies. technologies, stucking in Angular 1.4 was just horrible. No one wanted to work for us. So we had to do what we had to do with the app, with at least the front-end apps to attract more people. So
Interesting. All right, let's see. Do we have the mic?
Hi, how's it going?
Good man, thanks.
You mentioned something about mixing some technologies, I mean, like more than 2 or 3 frameworks of front-end, and you mentioned something about a Medium blog.
Yeah.
Are you going to include the slides somewhere so we can find?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm good with the slides. I'm gonna share the link on the Twitter. So if you follow the hashtag XpandConf 2019, I'm gonna share all of these things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely, no worries, man.
Great. Another question?
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
I want to ask about the mission process you talked about.
Yeah.
It was very amazing how you put everything and you put a formula to calculate how you go and then to measure the success after the journey.
Yeah.
Can you share with us how you, as a company, come up with this process? Did you base it on some previous practices from other companies or something like that?
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely. Some of this was what we saw works for us. So like this NUMS was something completely invented by us. Is that like how we want to layer this? The rice equation is basically, I think it's, I can't remember the company, but it's adopted from other people. So basically what we did is we tried so many things and we just managed to find what works for us. And that's why I said at some point, it's not a blueprint for success, it's what we found worked for us. Mm-hmm. So I tried to share as much as I can, like how we managed to reach these things. And again, like some of it is us, some of it is, adoption of various things. But yeah, it's a mix and match, mainly. Yeah.
Another question? We have a question all the way in the back on the left.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for the talk.
Yes.
So I have a question. You said it's very difficult to have an engineering team that stays as the company scales.
Yeah.
So in Beamery, like how much do you, or how much of the team that started with the company just...
So I mean, if you take, to say, the point when we managed to raise Series A, we were like 11 engineers. So out of those 11 engineers, only 2 are left. So from the core engineering team, only 2 people are left. And maybe something that I didn't say as well, we have lots of remote people working with us. Because again, hiring was difficult to find people who are, let's say, in London, who want to work with us. At the moment, 40%, if not more, of our teams are across. So we have in Argentina and Siberia, we have crazy time zones from +7 to like -6. So we have lots of remote people as well. Because again, scaling teams, you can't just ask people to be in London the whole time because they want to be with us. So one of the scaling problems was you need also to scale geography of your hires. So we're actually hiring people across, but out of those 11 people, only 2 are left, which basically myself and the architect, and everyone else just decided to pursue other challenges. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, another question right here.
Hello, thank you. I wanted to ask another question about the micro frontend.
Yeah.
Did you have any downside to it? It's really attractive, but are you guys regretting it a little bit? Like,
we're super happy with it. It's been really great. I mean, once you nail down the communication between the micro apps, that's it. So we managed to have this kind of like centralized Flux store. And once you, I mean, like it's all about how you design your store again, right? Because you would have the subscribers to those kind of actions. So once you design this properly, it's actually so smooth, and we're super happy. Like, it's really a great thing to see, and I'm happy to share the article about it and all the open source tooling around it.
I have read it. Yeah, thank you. Another thing about the AngularJS guys, the one who wrote the monolithical app.
Yeah.
Did they stay? Did they learn the new technologies? What happened?
All of them left.
Okay.
All of them left. Yeah. I mean, one guy managed to actually be one of the core contributors of the migration to the micro front-end apps. But basically, he burned down. So it's really difficult to actually sustain, like this whole long journey. And people at some point burn down. And that's why my point was, you need to make sure that if I go back now in time, I would do things a bit differently. And that's why I try to share what I have now, so that people can actually maintain the core team that they have in the beginning. I'm still in touch with those guys. It's really sad to see these people who were with you, working till 4 a.m. almost every day, and then just leave. So I think the structure that we built in place is for us to avoid having this churn of people. We want to make sure that the people that we have are with us for the long run, basically.
We have one last question. Abid? لا 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 هناك فوق.
Thank you, Ahmad. My quick question is about the rotation between the mission and Launchpad. Does that apply for all teams, or you have certain core teams that do not have this?
No. So it happens with all teams. Now what we have is we have what we call like the core platform team. So the core platform team is a tribe by itself, which means that all the time you would have people from the core team who are supporting everyone else. So they are an internal delivery team. But inside the core tribe, they would have a Launchpad and they would have a mission. So you would have a fixed core team that will support, of course, the organization. But within that core team, because they are a tribe by themselves, they would have a rotation.
Excellent. I really like the guild tribe orientation as well. Very, very, very nice. Is that something you guys also came up with, or is this something that you brought in from?
So it's from the Spotify model, but we changed it by making tribes product specific and guild stick specific.
Right.
And the Spotify people have tribes, basically like a mixture of these things. So again, we're like adopting things that are basically standard in some other companies.
Awesome. Well, very proud of your accomplishments. Congrats on that.
Thank
It's
you.
Awesome.